It's 11:47 p.m. You're lying in bed, not sleeping, not scrolling, just staring at your bank account. You already checked it 20 minutes ago. The number hasn't changed, but somehow you check it anyway. Because when money is tight, your bank balance becomes more than a number. It becomes a weather forecast. It tells you whether tomorrow feels safe or dangerous. And most people think this feeling disappears when they make more money. They're wrong, but something very strange happens when your net worth starts approaching six figures. Most people never notice it until it changes the way they think forever. What happens at six figures? To understand why six figures change people, you first have to understand what happens before them. Because most people don't spend their 20s building wealth, they spend them surviving. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, every decision feels heavier than it should. You don't ask, what do I want? You ask, what can I afford? A dinner invitation, a weekend trip, a broken laptop. Nothing is just a decision anymore. Everything becomes a calculation. And after a while, something dangerous starts happening. You start making decisions based on fear, not opportunity. You stay in jobs you hate because quitting feels risky. You avoid opportunities because failure feels expensive. And eventually, your brain stops thinking about growth. It starts thinking about survival. Because when money is scarce, money stops being freedom. It becomes oxygen. Either you have enough of it, or you spend your life worrying about when you'll run out. And most people don't even realize this is happening. They think they're making rational decisions, but they're not. They're making survival decisions. And survival mode is a terrible place to build a future. Quick pause. I recently started this channel to break down finance in a simple way. We're still at the very beginning, so every subscriber really matters. If this kind of content helps you understand the world better, consider subscribing. It helps me keep going and make even better videos. Thanks. Let's continue. But something strange happens when the numbers finally start moving in the other direction. Something that changes the way you think about money forever. And that's where the story changes. At first you barely notice it. Nothing dramatic happens. No fireworks, no sudden feeling of wealth. One day your account says $3,000, then 5,000, then 8,000. For the first time in your life, the number keeps moving up. And something strange happens. You stop checking your account because you're afraid. You start checking because you're curious. For years, money felt like a problem. Now it feels like a tool. And then you make your first investment. Not a big one. Maybe $500, maybe 1,000. But that's not what matters. What matters is that for the first time, your money has a job. And a few months later, something almost feels wrong. You wake up, check your account, and there's more money in it than yesterday. Not because you worked longer, not because you got a raise, not because you picked up an extra shift, because your money worked while you slept. And once you experience that, it's hard to go back. Because you start seeing money differently. You stop asking, can I afford this? And start asking, is this worth it? That's when survival starts turning into strategy. And strategy changes everything. You begin thinking less about the next paycheck and more about the next 5 years. You stop looking for relief and start looking for leverage. But then comes the dangerous part, the part nobody talks about, because momentum is easy to destroy, and most people destroy it right before reaching six figures. And that's where things start getting really interesting. For most people, $100,000 doesn't sound life-changing. It's not a mansion, it's not a private jet, and it's definitely not retirement. But that's exactly why most people miss it, because the real value of $100,000 isn't what it buys, it's what it changes. For the first time, your money starts producing numbers big enough to get your attention. An 8% return on $10,000 feels nice. An 8% return on $100,000 feels real. And something changes when you realize your money can generate thousands of dollars without asking you to work another hour. Mistakes stop feeling catastrophic. A bad month doesn't destroy you. An unexpected expense doesn't send you back to zero. And that's when confidence starts showing up in places that have nothing to do with money. You negotiate differently. You think differently. You carry yourself differently. Because for the first time, you have something most people never realize they're missing. Options. The ability to leave. The ability to wait. The ability to take a calculated risk. But here's the strange part. The biggest change isn't happening in your bank account. It's happening in your identity. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped acting like someone trying to survive and started acting like someone trying to build. And that's where things become really interesting. Most people think money changes your lifestyle, but that's not what happens first. It changes your time horizon. When you're broke, you're forced to think about Friday. When you're building wealth, you start thinking about 5 years from now. And that changes your decisions. Because short-term rewards stop looking as attractive as they used to. For the first time, you start asking a different question. Not, what do I want today? But, what will matter 5 years from now? And something else changes. your relationship with status. Because once you've watched money compound, it's hard to get excited about things that depreciate. And that's when you realize something most people never figure out. The problem was never intelligence. Most people aren't poor because they lack opportunity. They're poor because they never escaped survival mode long enough to think clearly. And this is where most people accidentally destroy their momentum. This is where most people make a mistake. Not because they're stupid, because they're human. For years, they delayed gratification. For years, they sacrificed. And now they finally feel like they've earned a reward. So they upgrade the apartment, upgrade the car, upgrade the lifestyle. And none of these decisions seem dangerous on their own. That's what makes them dangerous. Because little by little, their expenses rise just as fast as their income. And without realizing it, they rebuild the same financial prison they worked so hard to escape. The people who become wealthy aren't always the ones who earn more. They're the ones who protect their momentum. Because the real power of $100,000 was never the number itself. It was what that number allowed you to do. Most people think $100,000 gives you more money. That's not the real benefit. The real benefit is that it gives you time. Time to wait, time to think, time to make better decisions. Because desperate people rarely make great decisions. They make fast decisions. And for the first time in your life, you don't have to react to every problem immediately. You can wait for the right investment, the right opportunity, the right move. And that's the strange thing about wealth. The more options you have, the less pressure you feel to use them. The first $100,000 doesn't buy freedom, but it creates distance from desperation. And that distance changes everything. Remember the person we started with? The one staring at a bank account at 11:47 p.m. On the surface, nothing looks different, but he's not checking it for the same reason anymore. Because the first $100,000 doesn't change your life overnight. It changes the way you see the future. And once that happens, every decision starts compounding. Not just your money. You. The first $100,000 changes your bank account. But more importantly, it changes the person controlling it.